Tune in, folks, it's time to go. Let's get started on the Webb Show. Webby Pumpkin in control, bringing stories to the whole. Hey, 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 it's fun and bright. Join us now, let's take flight. The Webb Show is on tonight. Come along, it's pure delight.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a very late night live, if you're watching it live, episode of The Webb Show. I'm going to explain kind of how that came to be in just a second. But hello, I hope all of you guys are doing so good. Why did it start playing the music again? Hope you're all doing so good. Guys, if you're here live, you may notice that we're quite a few hours late. And I don't want to give too much time into why that is. But long story short, I work a job, IRL, that requires a fair bit of driving from me, to be completely honest. I am Prue. Thank you so much for that. Oh, wait, no, Loki coming in with a sub. Thank you so much for the sub, Loki Rampage. I appreciate you. What up, I'm Prue. So we are live tonight, which, if you don't know this, though, I work a job that requires a fair bit of, actual driving from me. And, and I have had two vehicles to do this job so far. I've had a 2011 Jeep Wrangler, and it gave me a lot of problems, to be completely honest. It broke down a lot. It was full of issues. The other vehicle that I got that was supposed to be kind of the fix is a Chevy Silverado. And I will say there are a lot of nice things about that Silverado of mine. One being that it holds all my tools and there's plenty of room. We have an entire back seat. It actually gets better fuel mileage than my Jeep did. And despite the fact that it is significantly larger and has a fair bit more horsepower. However, I have had issues with both vehicles in the line of work that I'm in, and today marks the fourth time that my truck has given me an issue that caused me to be stranded on the side of the road needing assistance. I have only ever needed assistance in the Jeep one time, and that was because I literally got stuck in the mud up over the axle, and I had to get a professional overlander to come with his recovery gear and pull me out. Other than that, I've had lots of mechanical issues with my Jeep. It has run like garbage at certain points with misfires and different things. However, the Jeep, it may have not gotten higher than 30 miles an hour. It may have sounded like it was dying, but it always got me back home. It never truly left me stranded. Even the day that it got stuck past the axle after I got it recovered, it still rode home. So I've never truly been stranded in the Jeep. But the truck is different. In the chat, we got Prue asking if it's powertrain related. Not really. I did a lot of diagnosing, and it seems like it's my fuel pump that has gone out. The frustrating part about that is my fuel pump that's currently in it is only about 6 months old, and that is too short of a lifespan, if you ask me, for a fuel pump, since it's just been replaced. The good news is that that fuel pump is likely still under warranty, so I will not have to pay to replace it. The bad news is that I did the work myself, and if you've ever replaced a fuel pump in your vehicle, it is not fun. It is not a fun time to do so. So I get to do that. Other than that, it's all good. Loki says Jeep issues are the worst. As someone who owns a Jeep and needs repairs, I'll give it this: the truck repairs are, for the most part, less expensive. The Jeep repairs have been more expensive. But yeah, there's just been issues. The primary issue is that the line of work that I'm in, which is in oil and gas currently, it is just really, really hard on my vehicles. It really probably wouldn't matter what my vehicle was. It would be a big deal on it. It would be rough. But hey, that's not what this podcast is about. That's just my explanation to you guys who are live listeners as to why on earth Webby Pumpkin is streaming at 10:30 at night instead of 6 o'clock in the evening. That is why. And honestly, just to let you guys know, live streams might be changing soon-ish in the future, hopefully, because I recently applied to a new job. And so if that goes the way that I hope that it goes, my work schedule will change a little bit. So all of my live streams will probably need to be pushed back a little bit further back than they are currently. So I'll keep you guys updated both when I'm live and also on the actual podcast itself. If you're catching this episode later, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you enjoy your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you enjoy it, and you would like to hang out for a live stream, we do that pretty much every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at varying times. Tuesday and Thursday currently at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern for different times. We're playing a lot of Spiritfarer, which is our Gamer Club game of the month. If you're not familiar with Gamer Club, we just started that. It's kind of like a book club, but for gamers. So instead of getting together with a group of people and choosing a book and reading that book and getting together and discussing it and kind of experiencing that book together, we're doing the same thing, but with video games. It's pretty cool. We'll vote, we picked a game, and we're playing it, and the idea came from this desire that I had to try to get a little more skin in the game to make myself play games that I otherwise might not give a fair shake to. Oh, I didn't know that those are on.
We'll get phantom tax, that's the question. Who will keep
All
on
right.
doing, that's the question. I know you keep on losing, you must get a victory.
That's what happens when you forget to turn the alerts off for the podcast. You're good, Gamertag. Those won't play anymore, though, for tonight. So anyway, if you getting my track of thought back on, that's the idea behind this. If you know the type of games that I like games that are in the 3D platformer collector kind of variety, and and that's really my favorite in general. I play a lot of shooters because that's just what is made every year. I play some sandbox sim type of, like, I guess, farmy, crafty type games. I don't love the crafty side of that because that's what's made every year. But if you are like me and you are really a fan of the 3D platformer collector, it's slim picking. It's kind of difficult to get a good game. We did get one in 2024. It was Astrobot. It was fantastic. But there are other good games out there too, right? And that is what I'm hoping to find through the Gamer Club. If you're interested in being a part of the Gamer Club, anyone that would like to be a part of it is welcome to be a part of it. It does exist in the Webby Pumpkin, the Pumpkin Patch Discord. You can find a link to the Discord in the description wherever you guys are watching. Or, well, I just closed my bot, so I can't put it here. But you can find it in the panels underneath if you're watching live as well. If you're already in the Discord, or if you just joined the Discord, at me there, be like, at Webby Pumpkin, and tell me I would like to be a part of the Gamer Club. Would love to get you into that. It's a private channel inside of the Discord right now, but I would love to have you there if you guys would be interested. So that's one of the games we're playing. We're also playing some Indiana Jones, and of course we're playing Fortnite on Fridays, and that's what you can expect from me on live streams. Would love to have you for one of those. Guys, now let's get into what we're actually talking about today. Honestly, for the most part, we're talking about the Switch because there have been a lot of leaks that have come out about the Switch to the point that I don't know if there is much that hasn't been leaked. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Kind of jump into the whole thing, and then if there's enough time, we may talk about some other potential bans of social media apps and different things that are happening actually this month here in the U.S. if you're in the U.S. So let's get started. All right, so first thing first, if you're watching on the video, you'll see that I have just thrown together a Google Doc of just some things that I wanted to remember. The first one, I actually have some pictures pulled up that we'll go through also, is where the primary leak of this comes from. And that is from this company, Genki, that makes like Switch accessories and different things like that for the current Switch and other consoles. They're like, think like grips and cases and things like that. They brought a 3D printed replica of supposedly a Switch 2, and they've been showing it off. This is what's funny about this photo, though, like what I love so much about this photo. Let me see if I can I increase the size here so you guys can see? Yes, I can. This is what I love the most about this image. Are you guys ready? They're trying to be all secretive and everything, and right here, there's the dudes. Sandra D, thanks so much for the raid. I appreciate you. Appreciate the raid, Sandra. How are you? The dude that is showing this off right here, his face is on the badge right here in the image. Like right there on it. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess they're not trying to be all that secretive. Well, it turns out they're really not. So as I was like researching this to try to learn more about the potential leaks or just reveal of the shape of the Switch 2, I found this link to Genki's website where they have a full-blown, can I go full screen with this? They have a full-blown render of this thing. Look at that. Look at this thing. I'm just going to let that roll behind there. Now, this is obviously a mock-up showing off their case, like the case and the whole, I guess, grip, variable ergonomics, the way that the grip in the case should be able to go into the newest form of the dock. We have this, pay attention to that flashing red light that you see on the Joy-Con, but we see a charging stand for the new style of Joy-Cons. Those are likely not actually the Joy-Con per se, but they are, like I said, the rendering that Genki has on their site. The thing is, seeing something like this on an actual storefront, like this is Genki's website, makes me believe it a lot more. For our audio listeners, like it's everything there. What we know, the Switch is functionally going to look about the same. If these are to be believed, it's going to look about the same. It is going to be larger. It probably is going to have an LCD display. I know a lot of us were hoping and holding out for an OLED variation of this model as well, but it's probably going to be something closer to the original display that we saw on the Switch. I personally wouldn't be that surprised if the screen is plastic. You got to think Nintendo is really about making these things safe for children. And I know plastic is inconvenient. I put a glass screen protector on mine so it had a more premium feel. But if you think about how glass breaks and kids might like be running their finger across this panel a lot, playing games and stuff like that, it really does make a lot of sense that Nintendo chooses to do plastic displays. So I'm not upset about that at all. The Joy-Cons have a quick release button that appear to be on the inside, and they kind of, instead of slotting in via a rail system, they kind of have a tongue and groove thing going on where the Joy-Con slips into the inside of the Switch. There were rumors early on in the year that they were going to be magnetic. That makes sense that they might be slightly magnetic as they enter in, and then you need this button to kind of help assist with the removal process. There's a couple other interesting things too that I find around them. One is from this mock-up, we see a USB-C port on the bottom, just like the current Switch, but we also see a USB-C port on the top, which is to see two USB-C ports is very nice. I think the top one will be much better for things like accessories, while of course the one on the bottom is primarily going to be used for docking the system. And so we want to jump into a little bit more of this because there is also a motherboard leak that we're about to look at. But before we do that, the Sandra D came in the live stream and gave us a raid, and I want to thank her. T-Rex and Sandra D came over. Thank you so much for raiding. I appreciate you, Sandra. You got here on a very late night episode of my podcast, The Webb Show. We're talking about the Switch 2 and how we pretty much already know everything that there is to know about this thing. And when I say we know everything, I mean everything, because the next thing we're about to look at right now are leaks of the motherboard. So this is interesting. Can I open this image in a new tab? Yes, I can. This is interesting because we see, oh, well, that didn't work. We see the NVIDIA chip right dead center on what has been leaked as the internal motherboard of the Switch. That really lends itself to the idea that there will be some form of DLSS upscaling. It's not going to be DLSS. It's going to be something probably along the lines of what we see as the PSSR, which is PlayStation's upscaling rendering client, unceremoniously also referred to as PISR. So the PSSR, Nintendo, of course, is going to have likely their own branded variation of that. But if you're not familiar with DLSS or PSSR, it is basically a AI integer upscaling program that takes, let's say, 720p, which is probably, if we take anything from the original Switch, that's probably going to be what this board, that 720 to 1080 is what this is going to render natively. Like the hardware itself is actually rendering a 720p, probably 30, maybe 720p 60 display or output, I guess. Output's the best word for that. That would run through this NVIDIA card and through DLSS or whatever Nintendo decides to call it. That AI would take the 720 and it would artificially upscale it to whatever resolution they decide. Now, where this could be really cool is that means we could see 1080p in handheld mode. We could see, it automatically upscaling from 720 to 1080 right there in our hand. We might see something even more impressive than that. We might see something along the lines of the Switch being able to produce 1080p video footage natively in hand, or maybe even still 720. Who knows? I mean, the Steam Deck gets away with 1080 or with 720 or 800p handheld, and no one's really complaining about that. It's actually quite nice. It gets away with it. The Switch could still do the same thing, but then this NVIDIA processing chip could potentially, with enough juice, say when it's docked, when there's enough power to do so, it could upscale that 720p resolution to, say, 720p 60 frames to 4K 60, so that the games that we play in docked mode are 4K, at least 4K 60 or 4K 30, whatever they do, on our TVs and our monitors and whatever we plug it into. So why, you may ask, like, well, why would you do that? Why would you add the middleman or add the extra step to these cards when you could just render it that way? Well, because it's much more efficient and much easier. So these cards with AI upscaling, it allows the actual processing power of the card to not have to be all that intense. It doesn't have to be all that powerful. If it can render the native resolution at 720p, means it also likely wouldn't consume as much battery power if it renders it at 720p, but it could still deliver an experience that is closer to on par with 4K native that we see from things like the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X or pretty much any modern to semi-modern PC. Even handheld PCs are capable of doing 4K 60 natively. It just depends a lot on your game that you're playing, because obviously a more demanding game does a lot more. These AI chips are going to allow for more power, if you will, even if it's artificial, in a very small, compact form factor that will require likely less battery. And the big kicker for me, well, less battery because it's handheld, but the big kicker for me is probably less heat. You're not going to have to worry about this thing overheating or getting like really, really warm in your hand or really, really warm in its very small form factor, because already cooling is something that really has to be taken into account when you're looking at something that is effectively the size of a college rule notepad. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that thick, and it's got to really be able to reduce and expel heat. This would be really effective for that. This would be really cool. We're going to look at some more pictures of this motherboard. In the chat, we got Sandra D saying that she's excited for the new Switch. I think I'm excited about it right now. I want to see more. There is rumor that we are going to see, we'll talk about that in a minute, but we might actually see Nintendo actually announce this thing, finally reveal it this week. That's very possible. If you can even consider it revealing, I actually tweeted that, and I'll show it. I actually tweeted that earlier because I saw the post that, according to Nate the Hate, that's the source, Dextero posted that we could be seeing the Switch 2 being revealed this week. So yeah, here's the tweet from Dextero. It says Nintendo reportedly revealing Switch 2 this week via Nate the Hate 2. I retweeted that and said, I mean, at this point, there may not be much to reveal. Still exciting if it's true, though. And it is. It is exciting. So we might actually finally see this announcement this week. We'll see. I Am Proof says, cost factor, do you think, with these AI chips will be less costly than native 1080p or 4K? I don't know, because it is, unless they cut a good deal with like NVIDIA, it is still very modern technology. And so I don't know if it's going to be all that inexpensive to put into the Switch. I think where they're saving money would be getting away with less powerful CPUs, less powerful GPUs, because you don't have to necessarily have a CPU that can render 4K native. You can get by with 720 or whatever they put in there. And it's also going to potentially allow them to use smaller batteries and still hit pretty good like battery life expectancies, which I'm going to be honest with you, the Switch already has a really good battery life. Let's be real. You can get like 8 hours on that thing playing something like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom in handheld mode, one of its most intensive games. You'll be hard-pressed to find anything else that has that kind of battery life. I own a Steam Deck. The least battery consuming way to use a Steam Deck is definitely with SteamOS. I've used Steam and I've used Windows. And even with SteamOS, if I'm in standby, I get like a day and a half, maybe 2 out of it in standby. If I'm playing a game, it doesn't have to be all that intensive. Like, let's say I'm streaming a Game Pass game. I can probably get like 8 to 10 hours streaming a Game Pass game. But if I'm playing something like, well, for example, I played Plague Tale Innocence, which is the first Plague Tale, native, handheld for the most part, and I was getting maybe 2 hours. Maybe 2 hours before it was telling me, hey, you got to plug this thing in. So we've been spoiled by the Switch a little bit, or maybe we've just been shown what a good, efficient system the Switch is in a handheld form factor when you compare it to things like PC handhelds. Honestly, when you compare it to things like my phone is a little old. It is a Samsung S21 Ultra, so it's got a little bit of age on it. No more age than my Switch has on it. And my Switch's battery will outlast this phone every day of the week. Every day of the week it's going to outperform my phone's battery at this point, at this age. That's impressive, guys. That's really, really impressive on these things. And of course, your mileage may vary depending on how much you play your Switch, how much you leave your Switch on, perhaps how often you leave your Switch docked and it's plugged in. That might influence the battery. However, other tech journalist and YouTuber Bob Wolf on the Wolf Den channel, he has a Switch OLED that he has had plugged in and on bright mode for thousands of hours at this point. And every time he does an update to the video, which was originally planned to test burn-in on the OLED display, every time the Switch barely dies before a regular Switch or a newer Switch that doesn't have that type of abuse. That's pretty impressive, man. It's pretty impressive, especially when compared to something like the Steam Deck OLED that he's also doing this test with, which has been on a significantly smaller amount of time than the Switch. And at this point, in the last video update that he did with it, when you unplug the Steam Deck, it just turns off. The battery's dead. It doesn't. It's fried. It doesn't work unless it's plugged in anymore. So that is saying something. I've seen the dude put the Switch in a freaking toaster oven, and it still lasted for a while before it overheated. So this Nintendo really did do a good job with this. They really did. Looking back at this, at these leaks of the motherboard, it does appear from this swatch. Let me see if I can get this pulled up in a better image as well. It does appear. This is not the best. Let's try it like this. Yeah, in this swatch, which is very blurry. I have to apologize. Here we see the what is probably the cartridge reader right here. We got an SD card slot likely. We've got our lower USB-C port, which is likely this one right here at the top. This picture is upside down, but which likely this right here at the top. If I'm understanding it correctly, we've got our board and our chips. And then right here, we've got what also appears to be an additional USB-C port at the top. This, which leaked significantly earlier than the Genki 3D print release, seems to corroborate the idea that Genki's 3D model is probably correct. Or at least really, really, really close. There's also some potential that it might have some analog triggers. Okay, the other thing that's interesting, let me see if I can find a picture of this. A Switch 2 Joy-Con. Look at this. There's a really good picture of it from the side. If I can find that leaked image really quick. There's actually a couple that are popping up now. Interesting. I'm seeing some stuff that I hadn't seen before. But I showed this on I think it was the last episode. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. Here it is. Well, this is the image. This is the image in question. Okay. So this image shows us this sensor that is right. So right above here, dead center of this image, you can see what will probably be where the actual data transfer takes place on the Switch Joy-Con. It's just a slot, you know. It's just there's probably some type of like connector that will slot into this that's inside of the recess of the Switch 2. And that's probably where everything will happen there. We've got our button just like the current Switch. We have a button here for pairing. We have a much larger SL and SR button. And then we've got this funky little thing here that is at least on the left Joy-Con. Maybe on both, but it is at least on the left Joy-Con. A lot of people are theorizing that is the same type of high-frequency depth sensor that we see on. So I have two here for an example to show you that we see on the bottom of modern computer mouses. And yes, mice is the plural of the animal. Mouses is the plural of the computer equivalent. So we have this sensor on the bottom here, not the older style that lights up red like this one does, but something a little more like modern, like this Logitech Hero. What is this? G502 Lightspeed. It's got a similar sensor there, and it just rapidly over and over and over again seeks what's in front of it and was like, okay, am I or am I not moving? Some people are theorizing that this could be used like a mouse for the Switch. I find it kind of improbable until I take like a modern Switch Joy-Con and I turn it on its rail and kind of pretend that it's a mouse and use like the right trigger as like my click, because you have like a right click and a left click if you use the top of it. And honestly, it's not that uncomfortable. It's actually pretty good. Also, these pads that we see on the top and bottom of the internal portion of the Switch here, they kind of look like, well, hold on, I need to actually show you guys on the screen. These pads that we see kind of right here on the top and bottom of the Joy-Con, they kind of look like the little slidey pads on a mouse to make it like slide across like a mouse pad a little bit better and a little easier. Kind of look like that. Kind of look like it. So probable, a little too early to say, but maybe. There are also other people that think that it might be something like a health wellness sensor. What are those things called? Not longevity. I don't know. The Wii had an add-on for the Wiimote that had one of these potential sensors in it. Let's see if I can find it. I'm just gonna Google Wii finger reader. See what it's called. Vitality sensor. It was called the vitality sensor. That's the word. And it looked like this little guy. A vitality sensor. This was, as far as I'm aware, this was never actually released. But basically, it plugged into the bottom of the Wiimote like a nunchuck would. You stick your finger into the port, and you can kind of see the sensor right there. And it would, check your pulse or whatever through your fingertip. Likely would be more accurate than the IR reader that's on the bottom of the current Joy-Con that games like Ring Fit Adventure use to try to check your vitals or your pulse. I think that would be really, really gimmicky. Like I said, when they did it on the Wii, it didn't even release. I think that would be incredibly gimmicky, which Nintendo is known to do. They'll do gimmicky things. but it's also so incredibly niche that it's, in my opinion, a little beyond the realm of likelihood. I think that as uncomfortable and also niche as it would be to use something like the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con as a mouse, that is far more reasonable than a vitality sensor for something like this. Because I actually think it could have some really neat implications. Knowing Nintendo, it will only be used for like media, like watching Netflix or something on your Switch in a docked form. But even that's kind of better than what we have with the current Switch. So I'll take it. I'll take it. Whatever. I'll take it. And that's pretty. Let me check my notes real quick and make sure that's everything. 2 USB-C ports. We got the Genki leak. That is pretty much everything. I've got some more 3D renders of this, but I don't think that these additional 3D renders really, honestly, I don't think they do anything that the Genki showcase doesn't do better. Like I really think that this accessory showcase of the Switch 2 does a far better job of showing off the potential of the hardware like this. It's kind of wild. It really is. And it actually has me excited about the system. I think that I can see, if this is right, I can see clear improvements to the current Switch, which is exactly what I want to see from Nintendo in something like this. I want to see the Switch we have now, but make it better. And that could be really cool. It could be really fun. And it might even end up being something that I find like a system that I find myself coming back to more than I do the Steam Deck. As many of you know, my Steam Deck is currently currently RIP. You know, it's not doing all that hot because I messed it up. It's really hard to say because we don't know what it's going to be packing under the hood. But this could be similarly powered, or at least with the upscaling, appear to be powered as well, if not better, than a current Steam Deck, especially like an LCD model Steam Deck. And if that's the case, for its form factor and its comfortability and its ease of use, I could potentially see myself really picking this thing up instead of my Steam Deck, because my Steam Deck is heavy. It's nice, but if this is big enough and comfortable enough, good enough, I could really see myself connecting with this. So yeah, I kind of want to know what you guys think, because it kind of seems like a banger to me. Kind of seems like a banger. So yeah, other than that, I think the only what else is happening this week? Oh yeah, by the time that our next episode airs, it is possible that we won't have TikTok anymore. That is, it looks like here in the U.S. that is going to go through, and I think, let me double check this. I think it is the 19th. Let me double check that. TikTok ban date is going to be on the 19th. And if nothing changes, President-elect Trump, I hear the rumor, maybe has requested that Congress delay or wait on the banning of the app until after he is inaugurated into office. So maybe it will, maybe it won't. Today is the 13th, so we got 6 days. We got 6 days till it goes through. If it's going to go through, who knows what is going to happen? What a time to be alive! What a time to be alive! Isn't that wild? What a time to be alive. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about TikTok being banned, and but mostly tell me about the Switch. Good things happening this week. We've got a live stream on tomorrow. We've got a live stream on Thursday and Friday, and then Thursday night I've been asked to be on another podcast called AFK to Chat really looking forward to that. I'll drop their links in the description so you can go ahead and check out AFK to Chat and get acclimated to them. And then as soon as I know when that episode is going to air, I'll be posting on social media, and I'll be talking about it here on the live stream to let you guys know when that's happening. Would love it, and it would mean a lot to me if you guys consider watching the episode or listening to the episode that I'm on. The whole premise of their show, it's kind of a brand new show. Whole premise is CC, the host, is trying to encourage and help streamers that are just a little too nervous to hit that go live button, to go ahead and hit that go live button. And he asked me to come on and kind of share my story, share a little bit of my experience, and kind of what I think about just the industry and the whole thing, all in all. And I'm really honored by that. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation. And then I am working out the details, but next Monday we might have our first guests on the podcast. We're going to treat it very live stream-esque. So if you're listening back next week and it feels a little bit unnormal, that is because it is. But we're going to invite on P. Tony and Yenza, a married couple, Yenza, to share her story of conversion. So if you guys follow my live streams, you know that Peter and I just had a conversation last week on live, just chatting about kind of some ideas or some beliefs that like Catholics have versus beliefs that Protestants have. We come from different camps there. And it was a really interesting conversation. His wife, Yenza, has actually converted from Protestantism to Catholicism, and I'm very interested in her story and learning more about that. And she agreed to share it with me, but also she agreed to share it in a live format. So if that all works out, we'd love to have her on next week, and I think it'd be really cool if you guys are interested in that and checking that out. It is going to be outside of the norm of what we would normally talk about with the Webb show, but you know, I describe this podcast as tech and gaming news plus a slice of life. And this, I guess, is a little bit of that slice of life. So I'm looking forward to that. I really, really appreciate you guys. I hope that you all have a fantastic start to your week and that it treats you so, so good. Thank you so much for listening to The Webb Show. Even if it's super late, no matter where you're listening, love you guys. Really appreciate you. Catch you next time.